Let's bring on Jimmy Johnson. Maybe that's why Jimmy lives in the Keys. Jimmy's like, enough of this nonsense. I want to go fishing and have a beer on my terms. I understand, Jimmy, why you had 10 years you could have. By the way, why did you retire? Were you just tired of everything?
It was an all-consuming job.
Yeah.
Because I handled personnel. I mean, if I hadn't handled personnel, I probably could have delegated a little bit more and had a little bit more spare time. But, I was completely away from my family all the time. I never really had any social life, didn't have a family life. And so I said, hey, it's time for me to enjoy a few things.
If you would have had to, I don't know how many times you faced Andy Reid, but Todd Bowles is a heck of a defensive coach, and he is flummoxed last night. I don't know your history with Reid, but I watch Andy and Mahomes, and Jimmy, it is like a perfect marriage. Andy likes to screw around and have some flair and fun, and Mahomes can deliver it. When you watch it, what do you see?
I tell you, starting off that ball game, when I saw Mahomes making some of the throws, making some of the plays, Kelsey, running the ball, jumping over tackles. Yeah, here's a little basketball. Look at here. Look at this play by Holmes. Unbelievable. I mean, how many quarterbacks can do that?
Right.
When I saw that, I said, please, there's no way, as good as Brady is, that, Tampa's going to win this game. Kansas City's got this thing all the way.
Was it harder for you to prepare for? You had to spend time on fake punts and reverses.
Without question. I tell you, in college, Bobby Bowden was that way.
Yes.
My first year at University of Miami, we lined up against them, and they ran reverse after reverse, flea flicker here, there, and everywhere, and beat us pretty good in Miami. We got ready for him the next 4 years. We beat him the next 4 years. But that first year, man, I was just my head was spinning looking at all those reverses. We got ready for him, though.
All right. Yeah, I remember those. And Bobby, by the way, the late Bobby Bowden was one of the most creative coaches. One time he told me, I said, Bobby, what do you do when you get home after a game? He goes, I take out a notepad and I watch the Pac-12. He goes, they always got good tricks out there. And he goes, I know the other coaches fall asleep. He goes, I sit and take notes on Pac-12 games. So to your point, some guys are more creative. Now, let's burrow in on Dallas. I don't buy into the quarterback controversy, but I will say this. There are times that a backup can do things as a coach, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to take that element with us to Dak. What do you see from Cooper Rush that you really like and would keep doing it?
Well, he knows how to be successful in the NFL. Howie and Michael, they get tired of me saying this, but success in the NFL is not who makes the most great plays. It's who makes the fewest bad plays. And Cooper Rush, he knows his role. His role is get the ball to the playmakers, throw to the open receiver, and let your defense win the game. Don't try to be cute. Don't try to be pretty. Don't try to make the great throw. Don't try to scramble for 10 yards. And probably as slow as he is, he's not going to scramble for 10 yards. But he knows his role, and that's why they're successful.
Yeah. Pretty good pass rush this year, Jimmy.
Yeah. Well, no, great pass rush. They've got great pass rushers. It'll be interesting to see what the Rams do in our game of the week here come Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, because, the Rams, should be able to run the football and slow that pass rush down. But well, that's how Tampa beat them the first game. Fournette rushed the football.
Right.
You've got to run the football to slow that pass rush down.
Listen, a couple weeks ago, this probably drove you nuts. Jerry had to have the mic in front of him. He said, I'd love to have a quarterback controversy. And I thought, oh, good God. What would you have said to Jerry if he'd have said that 5 minutes later in the locker room?
I would try not to listen to anything that Jerry said because he's going to talk every single day. Anytime somebody walks into that building with a microphone, he's going to talk. And so, really, Mike McCarthy said it, hey, Dak Prescott is our quarterback. Enough said. So
here's what concerns me. I saw it at Oklahoma this weekend, and I've seen it with the Denver Broncos. Is that generally, Jimmy, a head coach takes over a football team, college or pro, and he gets his side of the ball figured out. Lincoln Riley's got the Trojan offense figured out. McVay did it in L.A. McDermott got the Bills' defense figured out. That's what you guys do. But when I see the coach struggling on his side, Nathaniel Hackett in this offense, Jimmy, it's vanilla. It's predictable. There's not a lot of movement. I'm not trying to be hyper here, but I don't see it. Is it a mistake? Is he over his head?
Well, the problem, Colin, is you've got a new coach, a new quarterback, and that new quarterback's not a young quarterback. He's a veteran that's had a lot of success. So he's pretty well set in his ways. So the two of them have got to somehow blend, to find out what's best for both of them. But there can be a little bit of conflict until they get to feeling each other out.
Yeah.
Because one's going to want to do something, and the other one said, hey, that's not what I'm good at.
Right.
I'm good at something else.
Right.
And so it takes a while for them to blend.
Listen, you dealt with strong personalities, Troy Aikman, Dan Marino, and it's not easy. And I think Troy obviously was winning, and you got Troy in his prime. You got an older Dan. So I look at Aaron Rodgers. He's obviously great, but he's got these rookie receivers, and his personality can be pretty prickly when it comes to new guys. If you fumble, he's not going back to you. Would you, Jimmy, how would you handle that with a Hall of Fame quarterback and rookie receivers from small colleges?
Actually, mine was pretty good. Troy was, of course, young, and so he did whatever we wanted to do to win the games. And then really Dan, when I went there, Dan realized that he didn't have any knees left. He couldn't move. He had a bunch of injuries. And he told me, he said, Coach, I don't care if we run the ball every down. He said, I just want to win some games. So Dan, as opposed to what some of the media thought, Dan was really pretty good about what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
You look at Aaron Rodgers, I think he's been pretty good. He is still a great, great quarterback. But even in the game yesterday, who is it? Dobbs, the rookie receiver, dropped the touchdown. But in overtime, he went right back to him. And so I think Rodgers has been pretty good. And he has adapted to the running game the last couple of years, which he might not have done years ago.
I would imagine... it's so, I've asked you this before, but you want your players to care. I mean, you were able to coach Charles Haley, who was highly emotional, but you would prefer your quarterback have a little bit more emotional discipline because you're kind of the captain of the ship, right? I like Lamar Jackson a lot. He wears his emotion on his sleeve. And sometimes when I watch him, Jimmy, if he has a pick, he starts pressing. He gets very emotional. He gets very discouraged. He tries too hard. It's about the only thing about him I don't love. Do you coach it out of him? How would you handle that?
I think the quarterback and the coach has got to, kind of work together on this. Just for instance, you mentioned Troy Aikman earlier on. Troy was as quiet as a church mouse, really when I was there. And then after I left, and he saw that the team needed a little bit of discipline, he was screaming and hollering at the players, every other play, because Barry was over on the sideline eating a hot dog. And so, but Troy took that role as a disciplinarian, and so really, I think the quarterback has got to be his own personality. You've seen both work. You've seen the fiery guy that's able to get it going, the Brett Favres, and then by the same token, you've seen the real, laid back, very calm and cool and collected, guy. Tom Brady goes bananas every now and then, but when he's on the field behind the center, he's calm, cool, and collected.
Okay, so Rams-Niners tonight. I like Garoppolo more than most, but I also view him as a guy that needs things to line up for him. You're not going to carry a lot, right? Stafford is unique. He's a little Joe Burrow that he can be a tad reckless, but he tends to forget it. It doesn't affect him the next series. How much reckless are you comfortable with?
I don't like reckless. Yeah.
Right.
I guess from my days playing defense and coaching defense, I wanted the team to be able to win. I think you've got to take chances offensively, and at times you might need to be reckless in order to get back into the game. but I don't want to beat ourselves before we have an opportunity to win it with our team. And so the quarterback, I would say this, there's times to be reckless. But, therefore, until you see the momentum of the game, you want to be somewhat conservative, protect the football, don't take a lot of chances.
Who is the best team you have seen so far? Is it Kansas City?
Colin, you're going to have to ask me week by week, because one week it's this team. One week you say, hey, man, this Philadelphia bunch is good. And then the next week you say, last night you say it's Kansas City. I think a lot of it's going to depend on who stays healthy through the next couple of months.
Right.
Because things can change in a hurry. You lose a key player, and all of a sudden you go to the middle of the pack, whereas before you're at the leader of the pack.
Yeah. Hey, you're down in Miami. You know the Dolphins and that part very, very well. The Tua situation, they fired doctors. I mean, it's interesting. You grew up in a different generation, or coached in a little bit of a different generation, where, guys, I mean, it's now there's cameras, there's doctors, there's media. We are very hyper aware of head injuries up. What was the rule 20 years ago? I mean, did you just look a guy in the eye and go, yeah, I don't feel right?
No, that didn't happen even when I was coaching. And the procedure, I talked about it on Fox NFL Sunday yesterday. When a player was injured, he left the field. I never had contact with him again until the medical team, the doctors and the trainers, and now the independent neuro trauma consultant.
Right.
Once they have checked him out, then they would come to me and they'd say, Coach, he's okay. You can send him back in the game. Or they'd say, listen, we are holding him out. He is done for the game. So I never had contact with the player once he left the field and he was injured.
Yeah.
And then as far as Mike McDaniel, when the doctors, the so-called experts, came up to McDaniel and said, hey, Tua is fine. He's got a back injury. He's ready to go back in the game. He put him back in the game against, who was it, Buffalo, and won the ball game.
Right.
And so then they checked him out again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is doctors checking him out 3 days in a row and said he's okay to go ahead and play in the Thursday night game.
Yeah.
So Mike McDaniel's got to listen to his people. He's got to trust them.
Yeah. And you did. You had, all your career, college and pro, you just trusted doctors.
Yeah, they told me whether or not a player was going to play or not. Now, Howie Long he'll dispute this. He'll say, "Oh, Jimmy, you probably said, hey, you feel okay? How many fingers do I have up? Go ahead and get back in the game." But that was not true. I really never even talked to a player once he is injured. The doctors told me whether or not to put him back in or not.
All right, Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of Famer, Fox Sports. Great seeing you. Thanks for coming on the show, Coach.
All right, Colin.
All right, appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.